Donald made an appearance on Meet the Press yesterday with Kristen Welker, and it was the usual mix of lies, deflection, and authoritarian threats wrapped up in his signature brand of ignorance. Shortly after, I had the opportunity to respond to one of his most egregious talking points. Take a look.
You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
You know, we're the only country that has it. Do you know, if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need to, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it.
That was Kristen Welker's exclusive interview with Donald Trump on Meet the Press today. Now, we should note that more than 30 countries do recognize birthright citizenship. We're back with Mary Trump and Tim O'Brien. Mary, what do you make of Donald Trump's outright hostility toward immigrants when it was actually a lot of immigrants who helped vote him into office?
Well, not only that, look, let's be very clear here. It's despicable. Also, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I think that's the first time he's ever heard any part of the Constitution in his life. He's a deeply ignorant, cruel man who seems to forget that his father was a first-generation American. So if it hadn't been for birthright citizenship, my grandfather probably wouldn't have been allowed to stay here. Obviously, the immigrants Donald hates are people of color. And what he also doesn't understand is that the reason why we have the 14th Amendment was because we enslaved an entire race of people. And it was to ensure that after the Civil War was over and they were freed, they were ensured and protected by citizenship being conferred upon them. So it is a power grab. I don't think that there is any mechanism by which he can make it happen. But this is another instance in which we are in the unfortunate position of having to rely on Republicans to do the right thing and protect American citizens.
Well, that's alarming. So again, Donald, when pressed, well, lightly pressed, I guess, by Welker about how he's going to get around the 14th Amendment, simply said, we're going to have to get it changed. Okay, how? How through executive action are you going to get that done? Now, Donald, who clearly doesn't understand the Constitution, wants to dismantle a fundamental right unilaterally, a privilege usually left to the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court. Donald doesn't really have a problem with immigrants, though. Just ask two of his wives, his father and his paternal grandparents. It's only immigrants and undocumented workers of color he's going after. During my MSNBC interview, I pointed out that the 14th Amendment was drafted specifically to protect the rights of the newly freed enslaved by guaranteeing them citizenship, right? Well, Kristen Welker also discussed with Donald the fact that President Biden is considering preemptive pardons to protect people like Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, and Anthony Fauci. Donald's response essentially underscored the wisdom of Biden's issuing those pardons when he essentially accused the January 6th committee of criminal behavior and suggested they should go to jail. Now, while Donald claimed he had no plans to weaponize the Department of Justice, by nominating Kash Patel to be director of the FBI and Pam Bondi to be attorney general, two of his most loyal sycophants, he basically already has. Watch this clip.
Well, I don't even know about standing up against it because we have seen Donald Trump invoke this consistent theme of loyalty, particularly with respect to the DOJ. And that is also a huge theme in the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, this sort of loyal, weaponized DOJ. And to that point, Mary, I want to bring you into the conversation. Donald Trump says that he will not direct his administration or the DOJ to investigate the January 6th committee. But at the same time, he also is looking to push Kash Patel as his pick to lead the FBI and do what he thinks is right. How do you square those two things, particularly for someone who ran on a theme of revenge and retribution?
Well, it's very cynical of him. He knows that in a way, he's actually telling the truth there. He probably won't have to direct whomever heads the DOJ because that person will be completely in line with him. As you say, the currency here is loyalty to Donald Trump. We've been dealing with this since he fired James Comey, after James Comey pointed out to him that individuals don't do that. They are loyal to the Constitution in the United States of America, not one individual. Project 2025 and Donald Trump are going to end that. And I also, by the way, of course, there will be open lines of communication between Donald Trump and whomever he puts at the head of the DOJ. Hopefully it is not Kash Patel, but whoever it is will be to all intents and purposes, just as bad and just as dangerous to individual American citizens who, as Tim pointed out, have only been doing their job as public servants.
This is obviously a direct threat to anybody who dares hold Donald accountable. And here's the kicker. He couldn't even articulate to Welker what crime those on the January 6th committee had committed. And that's simply because they didn't commit any crime. So some of them, like Cheney, actually sacrificed their political careers to uphold their duties as public servants. And yet, in an act of classic projection, Donald's go-to defense mechanism, he's acting like those who tried to bring him account for the many crimes he's committed are themselves the criminals and he the victim. Yesterday, CNN did some belated fact checking of the Meet the Press interview, and here's a partial list of Donald's lies. Quote, crime is at an all-time high, unquote. Meanwhile, both violent crime and property crime have consistently been dropping since the 1990s. His claims that his tariffs cost Americans nothing during his first administration. Not true. According to the federal government bipartisan U.S. International Trade Commission study, it was found that Americans bore almost the entire cost of Donald's tariffs on Chinese products. Here's what Donald had to say.
Delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. But I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars.
I had no idea he was a philosopher. He can't guarantee tomorrow. Huh. Anyway, lies, 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 lies. Also, Donald, you look really fucking old. Anyway, back to the lies. Donald also, because he can't help himself, revisited the completely false assertion that he, quote unquote, won the 2020 election, saying, I think it's an easy argument. It was proven even more conclusively by the win I had on this one. Thanks, guys, for giving him another reason to continue perpetuating the big lie. And one of the most egregious things, just because it is so wrong, is that he said that he was the one who saved Obamacare. I lost count of the dozens and dozens and dozens of times Donald and the Republican Party tried to overturn the Affordable Care Act. But again, who's counting? All right. So, what ties all of this together is Donald's desire to weaponize power by any means necessary, including the very, very dense use of disinformation. Whether he's threatening his perceived enemies with prison or trying to strip American citizens of their rights, he's constantly testing the limits of what he can get away with. Now, of course, he's been getting away with this for years, and it's a strategy that's worked for him, right? He pushes the envelope to see how far he can go, and then he pushes further if he gets away with it, right? This is how he consolidates power. As I've noted before, Donald doesn't necessarily need to succeed in his threats to cause serious damage to those who oppose him, though. He can ruin people's lives with accusations, subpoenas, lawsuits, and investigations across agencies while simultaneously creating a culture of fear to silence further dissent. Now, for those who stand up to him, the consequences may be devastating, and For some, the consequences already have been. But we've seen this before, right? This is nothing new here, and we can adapt accordingly. It's the same playbook the insecure bully has always used. That's why it's more important than ever to stand up against him, mock him for being the weak and pathetic man he is. So where does that leave us? Well, we have a choice. We can't afford to become desensitized to Donald's behavior, to those who enable it. We can't just pretend that it's just another meaningless soundbite that we can ignore, because this is about our survival and about the survival of our democratic institutions, and quite frankly, the survival of our humanity. That's why we're here, to call it out, to push back, to make sure that the truth doesn't continually get buried under the endless torrent of Donald's lies, misinformation, ignorance, and cruelty. So if you're new here, please make sure to subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit the like button, share this video. As I've said before, we're not going anywhere, and neither should you. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.